Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us for our second week of our Summer 2023 FCI Live series. We're excited tonight to have the peer case study of the West Georgia Farmers Cooperative. I know I've been talking this one up a lot in some of our sessions, but it's a very exciting, very unique story of cooperative organization. So I'm glad you're here for it tonight. And first off, real quick, if you haven't been in our sessions before, please do mute so we have good sound, and stay muted unless the speaker asks you specifically to unmute during maybe our Q&A and so forth, because this session is being recorded. And when anyone's unmuted besides the primary speaker, it really kind of messes with the sound. So we appreciate that. And as always, the videos for all of our FCI live sessions will be recorded, and those FCLI sessions will all the videos for all the sessions will be available Monday, July 23rd. I'll have them up by that afternoon, and I will email absolutely everyone who registered for any of the sessions whatsoever. So if you're here, you'll get an email from me on the afternoon of Monday, July 3rd with the links to all of the videos from the series, so you can watch them again, share them with your board, do whatever you like with them. It's the most requested thing. We absolutely will get that out to you. Real quick, we'd like to thank our FCI Live champion sponsor, National Co-op Grocers, who have made this Summer 2023 series possible. And with that, I am going to introduce Eric Lamar from the West Georgia Farmers Cooperative. He has a presentation for you tonight. If you have questions and comments, thoughts throughout the presentation, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat for Eric, and if something's really pertinent or makes sense to what he's talking about in that moment, I'll check with him and see if he wants that shared then. So please do go ahead and put those comments and questions you want to share with Eric in the chat as you're listening to the presentation. And as there's a good moment, I'll bring those into the conversation for Eric to respond to. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And thank you so much for being here tonight, Eric.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining me. And of course, FCI for this Monday, June the 26th, for this webinar series to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that's my cooperative, West Georgia Farmers Cooperative. Just to give a brief introduction of myself, I'm a small farmer. I live in the West Central Georgia area, and for those that are maybe not familiar with the geography, West Central Georgia is West Georgia. I literally live on the Alabama line. Alabama is literally in my backyard, but we're nestled between Atlanta and Columbus, about an hour south of Atlanta and about 25, 30 minutes north of Columbus. The cities are LaGrange, Troup County, other cities like Noonan that are closer to Atlanta, and of course, but the West Central Georgia area covers a pretty big swath. It goes almost to Central Georgia, and so overall, we probably cover about 20 plus counties. Those of you all that are familiar with Georgia, you know we're the state with the second most counties in the country, second only to Texas. We literally have 159 counties in Georgia, and so our West Central Georgia area covers about 30 of those. And of course, I'm a small farmer, good food, local food advocate, served on the board of Georgia Organics, social worker, human services worker by trade, done everything from government services to housing. And of course, I became interested in co-ops about 12 years ago, purchased a farm, was growing organically, heard about the West Georgia Farmers Cooperative, which was literally in my backyard, and the rest, they say, is history. And so I'm going to share my screen and get started on this presentation and just introduce you all to West Georgia Farmers Cooperative. Established 1966, 50 years, 50 plus years, and still growing, literally and figuratively. We are first and foremost a producer cooperative. We operate a food hub. That's our revenue. It's been our revenue ever since I joined the co-op. And of course, we're on the way to becoming a consumer-owned cooperative, as well as incubating a worker cooperative. So what we're building in West Georgia is not just a food co-op or a grocery store. We're building an entire local food system. And some of those pieces are already in place, and we're just upgrading some of them, and I will explain them to you progress. Um, as we progress, I seem to be. Oh, there we are. All right. So, who are the West Georgia Farmers Cooperative? As I mentioned, first and foremost, we are small farmers that aggregated or came together, and we aggregate our produce to sell into larger markets, therefore increasing our potential for revenue and keeping our family farms and small farms alive. We grow sustainably. We're a network of small growers, including some community gardens. Um, we're ranchers. We're value-added producers, bakers, just consumers, advocates, community activists, and everybody that makes up the food system and of course the community. So that's the West Georgia Farmers Cooperative is today. Right now, we currently stand at about 130 members. We've got this aggressive growth strategy. We're trying to get to 3,000 members, so then we can convert those people into owners, so that we can accelerate capitalization of this ambitious project that we're undertaking. So you can just look at some of these sites, and these are some of our good-looking people that make up the West Georgia Farmers Cooperative. And of course, my presentation is going to walk back from the beginning somewhat down memory lane to the present and a peek into the future. And so these photos are old black and whites and some old color Polaroids that shows who we were. Just think of that song playing in the back of your mind. That's the way we were as you look at these black and whites. Um, this picture up here in the middle that has that Gran Torino sitting out in front of some gas pumps, that's actually our building. You'll see a more updated version of that building as I continue to progress through the presentation. That was one of our first forays into food, into a food co-op. That was a convenience store where we pumped gas and sold food. This was the late 60s, early 70s. And of course, logging, firewood was another um, product, was another income stream that this co-op produced. This was a group of very entrepreneurial families and individuals. Now, mind you, this cooperative is older than I am. This cooperative is older, it's about 4 years older than I am. And so this was going on before I was born and before many of our current members were born. And of course, and then as you can see down here in the lower left, that's one of our founding families and their kids getting ready to take some produce to Fort Benning. Fort Benning is an Army base. I think they're in the process of changing the name, like they're doing a lot of these bases. But Fort Benning is an Army base situated southeast of Columbus. That was one of our big customers back in the days. And so, and then we also, in addition to food and other things, we also engaged in housing. This was our version of Habitat Humanity. So we had a lot of skilled people in our cooperative. When we first started, there was about 80 farmers that made up the West Georgia Farm, originally called the Harris County Cooperative. And if you throw their kids into it, because they were voluntold, so they were members too, averaging 8 people for family, you probably had about 640 members, official and unofficial, that made up this co-op. And so the housing endeavor, you see what some of the transformation that we were doing with housing was taking old houses like this and turning them into houses like you see in the bottom right. This is a mason block home painted white with nice shutters, almost look modern by today's standards. Um, and so that's just some of the work that we were doing then. And these are just some gatherings, um, just some field visits and those things. And so, and this was some early coverage by the Atlanta Constitution before it became the Atlanta Journal and Constitution, where they were doing a story on us. I think this article is dated like in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And one of our more prosperous enterprises was our feeder pig operation. We had a very thriving feeder pig operation. And Of course, this is just a snapshot. This is the story that focuses on a couple of our farmers who raised hogs and still plowed using their mules. As you can see, one of our farmers there with his lone mule, breaking up his acreage and getting ready to plant. And of course, and just some more photos of some of our people splitting logs. We were doing everything from selling barbecue wood chips to feeder pigs to syrup, to market vegetables to livestock. And so this was just some of the earlier times as we were working together, what some of the enterprises looked like. Now, these lean-to greenhouses were kind of popular. They were like some of the earlier models of co-op greenhouses where they would be situated on the south side of these simple buildings, and they serve two purposes. Of course, they serve the purpose of what greenhouses typically do, propagate new plants. But because they were south facing, they absorbed a lot of sun. They provided passive solar heat. So we would just open the windows behind there and kind of warm up the place. And of course, and the only thing you had to do was just put some metal barrels in there with some water in those. We had a gravel floor, and that was some of the earlier solar technology that we used. Um, and so and and like I said, we created a lot of our collective plant starts here. And as you see here, this bull was one of our gifts from Heifer International. Some of you all may or may not be familiar with Heifer International, but at the time, the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, which is an organization that our co-op helped to create, we're older than the Federation by a year. And so what happened, 20 plus cooperatives in the South, ours included, G's Bend, Quilting Bee, that Miss Estelle Witherspoon, some of those other co-ops got together and decided we needed someone to lobby for us in DC. So hence we created the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, in which later they would merge with the Emergency Land Fund and become the Federation of Southern Cooperatives slash Land Assistance Fund. And so this bull would impregnate our cows, and in accordance with Heifer International standards and requirements, you pay it forward. We would take offspring and donate those back to Heifer International so they could share cattle with someone else. And we would obviously, have this bull to continue to procreate with these girls here, and of course, just some more from the first story. And we also aggregated our grain to produce our own feed. We sold this feed throughout the community. People come to the co-op to get this feed. We would toss our old corn, or toss our corn and millet, soybeans, all of those things into our grain being grinded up, and we would make sacks of feed. And so we would share it among our own co-op members as well as sell to the public. So that was our way of producing a lot of the inputs that we needed for our farmers to farm and to maximize profit through sharing of expenses and resources, including labor. And these are just some of the prominent people that kind of started this co-op. Many of you all that's been in these spaces in the last 10 or 20 years, you may know who Ralph Page was. He was a long-serving executive director of the Federation of Southern Cooperatives. He was a neighbor of mine. Both of us are from LaGrange, and he was my mentor for the last 5 years of his life. He started his illustrious career with this West Georgia Farmers Cooperative. And the guy above him is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Thomas McBride. He was a colored extension agent back in the 60s because we were still segregated. And of course, this co-op was a creation, took advantage of a lot of President Lyndon Baines Johnson's Economic Opportunity Act programs, Great Society programs, the community action programs that gave us Head Start, the community action programs. This gentleman, Mr. McBride, was our first CEO, and he helped to incubate the West Georgia Farmers Co-op. And of course, we used the Vista Volunteers, which was the domestic counterpart to the Peace Corps, to administratively staff this co-op. And so that's how we were able to operate and thrive, because of the brilliance of people like Mr. Page. And so now a lot of those cooperatives that were created in the rural South A lot of them that were launched and chartered by the Federation of Southern Cooperatives. Many of those cooperatives died. They dissolved because rural America. What happens is people leave. Regeneration doesn't happen, so there's nobody hardly left to carry on the work day to day that's required to run a business, like a cooperative. And of course, and that was almost the fate of our cooperative, except for this gentleman here. He's our last living founder. His name is Richard Copeland. He's in his early 90s. He kept this co-op alive out of his own pocket. Him and his family. His son is one of our leaders today and currently serves as our board president. But they made sure that the taxes were paid and that the electric bills were paid, and they kept the operation. They kept the business alive. They kept the organization alive even though there was no business, and because they saw future value in this cooperative model, even in the rural South. And so, fast forward to today, I joined this cooperative in about 2012. Um, like I said, I just learned about it from Mr. Page because I was on my way to being this organic farmer. I just had purchased a farm in West Point, about 19 acres. And so I was heavily into sustainable ag and local ag. And then I learned about this co-op. And I went and met with them, and we joined forces, and we started to continue that work. We established new business, obtained new customers, and we consistently just delivered good service and good products. And this award was bestowed upon us in 2020 during the height of the pandemic. We were the Farm and Purveyor of the Year for the Southeastern region. This organization is called the Good Food 100 List Restaurants, and these are the top farm to table restaurants in the nation. And of course, we were nominated by Miller Union, Chef Steven Satterfield in Atlanta, and of course, and so we were, as restaurants were shutting down, during the pandemic, because that's the last place that most people wanted to be, in places that where a lot of people are congregated and they have to touch share spaces like tables and utensils and all of that. And so the people that was suffering the most were the restaurant workers. And so as a board member of Georgia Organics and as a member of West Georgia Farmers Cooperative, we were able to come up with a very creative program, um, farm champion program, where we fed frontline staff that were fighting, that the medical people that were battling the pandemic, and restaurant workers who were, of course, out of work. And so our focus shifted from feeding customers to feeding restaurant workers. And so every Wednesday, like clockwork, as we were doing before the pandemic, we were still aggregating food and delivering food to the Atlanta area, but we were bagging it for the restaurant workers as opposed to the restaurant customers. And because of this, of course, they bestowed this award on us because we were one of the few farming groups that was still operating, that made it, that was committed to operating in full capacity. So that's what that represents. And so, of course, for those that may or may not know, October is National Cooperative Month, and every year the group comes up with a new theme. This was, I think, last year's theme: co-ops build economic power, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here at West Georgia Farmers Cooperative. And so, when we do that, of course, operating under the customary 7 principles. And of course, and most of us, we know the 7 principles, but this is West Georgia's culture here. These are our values. Of course, family farms, local food, community engagement, and economic development. And in our mission statement, it reads, there, as you can see it, to assist in building a viable local food system and promote economic development. And of course, and then there's our vision statement as well. And so we are doing this. Of course, principle number 5, we have a book club. We're reading these 2 books. I've met both of the authors, know one of them personally. So if you want to join us in a social media environment on Clubhouse every Thursday, we're doing these book clubs. We're doing Collective Courage, and we'll also do some grocery story. So that's some of that. That's how we're here in principle number 5, education, information, and training. So as we're building a community, a customer base, viable businesses, we're making sure that we've got an educated base as far as knowing exactly what co-ops are, the fundamentals, how they operate, and most importantly, how West Georgia Farmers Co-op operates in this co-op space. And so what are we up to nowadays? Well, we've done a couple of things. Being a sustainable ag champion, I believe in reuse and recycling, but then sometimes you have to purchase new things. We purchased our third property. The 2 properties we currently have, one is you saw earlier where the car was parked. We're going to revisit that one here shortly, but that's our headquarters. Then, of course, I told you about the feeder pig operation. That's another 2-acre property that we own that we're not doing anything with. But then this property here is in the heart of the city of LaGrange. It's in the heart of the south side of the city of LaGrange. We just purchased this property this past August, 1.8 acres. Now, the thing about this community, there's a state highway reconstruction project going on. Anybody knows anything about Georgia and the state highways? State Highway 1-27 is like the longest highway, like in the South. It stretches from like Tallahassee, Florida to Chattanooga, Tennessee. It runs up West Georgia, and it runs directly through the South Side, this South Side community, where we are building this project. So we purchased that for the purpose of building something akin to this. Now, this isn't our actual architectural design. We're working on that, how it's going to actually look. But this was a visual that we did about 4 years ago. That was done for us by 7 groups, just to depict the businesses, the enterprises, the co-op owned enterprises that we're going to have in this space. We're going to pump gas, but the feature is the co-op owned grocery store. So we're going to have a grocery store. A shared kitchen is going to join that grocery store, which that's kind of common for a lot of these new food co-ops. But our shared kitchen is going to double as a space to provide an outlet for our local culinary entrepreneurs, as well as to develop product that will definitely find its way in the prepared food section, and maybe even some shelf stable products on the shelf. So we're going to be creating branded products out of this shared kitchen, as well as doing some other things to benefit the community. And then we're incubating a new co-op, a credit union that's going to be flanked. That's going to flank this grocery store, because those of us that know, credit unions are co-ops as well. And of course, and this development, this project is meeting a couple of needs, and I'm going to stop this here and just bring up another document that I want you to see. And this is just some of our demographics from our most recent market study, just to show you how businesses find needs and fill them. And of course, and how our co-op is, to show you the community that our co-op is addressing. Now, this, like I said, this is going to be in LaGrange, and of course, you see our population. Compare that to the right with Georgia's population, and you can kind of get a snapshot of this community in this trade area. This is small town America. This is not totally rural America. And of course, this is small town America. It's big enough to where you got some of your basic amenities. And of course, but one thing this community has never had are these enterprises that we're building. You see the median age, and you can kind of see that there's kind of a split between white collar and blue collar jobs, with blue collar jobs taking a slight lead. Now compare that to the state of Georgia. Georgia's becoming a pretty white collar state due to the economic engine of Atlanta. And of course, you see the educational attainment, but most critical, you see the per capita income, you see the average household, and then you see the average household incomes. So we're primarily, majority of our income is people kind of in this middle here, the 25 to 75. So that's who we're serving in this with this project. And so as I continue this presentation, I just wanted to kind of detour right quick just to give you all a snapshot of the trade area. And so We are, you know, it's those of you all that are doing this work, there's a lot of moving pieces. Now, this is one of our many bubble designs that we've been kind of working through. That's a real live plat. That's that the shape of that area, that white area, that's the plat, that's the property, that's the 1.8 acres that we'll be clearing off. And when we clear it off, of course, we'll have these the grocery store here, the kitchen, the community space. And that's another feature too. We're also doing a community space, a community room where people can, rent out the space, or where, of course, the co-op can use the space for meetings, those things, teaching labs. But it is a community space. And then, of course, then there's the credit union. Now, there's probably still going to be a few tweaks to this, but this is a generalized version of what it's going to look like. Because there's green space, and anybody that's done these construction projects, there's an environmental balance to them. You can't, if you knock down all the hardwood trees, you got to replant them. So you got to do the tree counts and all of that. So that's kind of what we're going through right now. And so we hope to start construction here within the next 30 to 60 days. We've been getting a lot of rain here as well. So that's also slowed us up. And so these are some of our farmers. This just illustrates what we will kind of feature: local food, local farmers, and also our culinary experts. This is one of our chefs and caterers. That's what that commercial kitchen is going to serve, as entrepreneurs such as this person. And this is our actual building. That's also our food hub. We're repurposing this old headquarters that we were meeting at monthly up until COVID. We're repurposing this to our food hub. Now, we currently operate our food hub, and of course, that barn that you see to the left, it currently has walk-in coolers, freezers. We're doing some, we're getting ready to pour some concrete pads and all of that, because this is going to be our hub. And of course, we got some work to do this. So the system is going to include, of course, it's going to consist, our saying is from seed to sale. So it starts with the farmers, the growing of the food, the selling of the storing, the aggregation, the delivery, all of the logistics. And then, of course, obviously, the retail end and the consumer is the end of that chain. We also plan, after we get this project up and going, we're also going to try to build a processing plant. So we will have control of the whole system. So we won't have to go outside of this system to do anything that we need to get our food from our farmers to our customers. Nothing will be interrupted. No one will be able to put a pause on the distribution. And so, but this is our building that was built by us, by some of those people that you saw in those black and whites. We own it free and clear. Everything that we own free and clear, including that property we just purchased to build that project that we're preparing to build. And so, and this is just a shot that I took last year at the up and coming food co-op conference, that detailed, that where we came together. And of course, and there's a lot of other people in this space that's doing this work. And so I just added that in there. And so that's kind of the presentation. And I meant to drag it out. I don't know how much time I took, but I'll just open it up now for Q&A. Any thoughts, comments, questions, issues, or concerns?
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. My name is Reginald Upshaw. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. I guess I have a misconception of what a co-op is, because each time I see about a co-op, it's about local farms. I wanted a co-op like Kroger's. I thought a co-op was just a community that came together and we got our money together and we bought a grocery store. But each time because I've been soliciting in my neighborhood about doing a co-op, and I just community collaborations. But that's not what I'm seeing all the time. Every time I see this, it's all about farmers and farmer markets. But you're not able to do a Kroger's or a co or or Walmart as a co-op.
This is our Kroger. This is our Publix. These are community-owned grocery stores.
Grocery stores. I came in late. I didn't see it.
Okay. Yeah, this is what we're working toward that right here. This is our vision.
Awesome.
This is what we're working toward. And so, but not only is it a grocery store and a shared kitchen, so it's not only just food, but that there's a credit union that's a part of our mix as well. This is a cooperative economic development complex. So a credit union is a co-op as well, and of course, eventually housing and other things. But this is the project that we're working to bring to fruition here within the next within the near future.
Awesome. I need a template on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Opal with a Market 166 Grocer and Kitchen Co-op, and we are in East Point, Georgia. And yes, and you are exactly the partners that we're looking for as we are building our vendor list. We're looking to work with as many local, and you are still considered local, local farms and farmers that we possibly can. And so I've been chasing you guys for a little bit, so I'm really glad to be on here. That you're on here and we're able to talk and to and see so many similarities in what we are doing. We're trying to build with our grocery co-op. So many things resonate. The kitchen, the meeting space, a place for the community to gather and learn and participate in, understand the food ecosystem, and a location and an incubator for small and cottage industry type businesses that we can support as a food location. So it's really great to see you on here. I hope, Mr. Upshaw, that this clarifies some things, because there are lots of different types of co-ops, not only food co-ops. And like you, I'm in being new to the board of Market 166, I'm learning a lot about co-ops myself. So I understand your confusion, and now I feel a little bit like an expert because I know a little bit more than you do.
And yes, and speaking of chasing, we share a member. One of your members is also one of our members, and I've actually referred people to you all's co-op. People from Atlanta, they want to join West Georgia all the time, right? Then they see what we're doing here, and I'll refer them to you all, because a co-op is really a local experience. Especially, yes. It's more beneficial if you can access it, if you can shop there every day. So I've done that, and I'll continue to do that. But Tanisio, I don't know if you know Tanisio.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is that Tanisio? Because yes, he is definitely, he's one of our board members now too. So yeah.
Yes. So that's your connection right there. So no need to chase. We're just Thank you.
Good evening. This is Janet Howard, Fertile Ground Food Cooperative in Raleigh, North Carolina. I caught a snippet of a presentation, and I was asking so many questions. I think it was JQ that said, we're going to have a conversation about this cooperative at a later time wherein you can learn more. And I'm just so delighted about the history of this cooperative, the brilliance and the business and the holistic approach, to hear you walk us through this ecosystem as you described it, which it truly is. You're a model for us. We will be a food cooperative in Southeast Raleigh, the traditionally segregated quadrant of the capital city of North Carolina. So we're excited about your work. We've had those Krogers, as a matter of fact, Mr. Upshaw, to leave our community two at a time. So we are at hard work to open our grocery store. So thank you very much. And based on look at the map, we understand that if food is 400 or fewer miles from you, it's considered regional food, and it would be advantageous for those of us who like local to also think regionally. And perhaps if there is an opportunity, we can also feature what you have in the Fertile Ground Food Cooperative in Raleigh. We're at the point now where our architect is doing some drawings. We have a local architect, so thank you for emphasizing how important it is for people to be local to the food cooperative. So thanks again. I can't wait to share this with our board.
Yes, and thank you. And to that point of connectivity, that speaks to principle number 6, cooperation among cooperatives. You all and Market 166, because we are a food hub as well. We currently do business as a food hub, and so and we will continue to do business as a food hub even after we establish our grocery store. So, and we do want to serve other co-ops as they get started, with products from our region, and as well get products from like other regions like California and Florida, things that we can't grow. So yeah, most definitely. I look forward to working with you all, and hopefully I'll meet you all at the up and coming conference this year in September.
Thank you.
Yep, see you there.
Any others?
Yes, hi, this is Sean Johnson. I'm from Connecticut, and I'm so happy to be here and so happy to see how you brought the vision. Your vision mirrors our vision, so this is just confirmation for us. We are in a food desert, and all of that. We live in the urban area, and I'm so excited to see you even have the credit union happening, because that's in our 10 to 15 year vision. We are a startup. We are not close to a brick and mortar yet, but we're getting there. We're moving slowly but surely. And so I just want to thank you for sharing your information for today.
Thank you. Any others?
If no one else tending as a question, Eric, I wondered if you could speak a little bit to, you said, you guys are under 200 owners right now, and you have an aggressive plan to get to 3,000 owners to help capitalize. That was just so intriguing to me when you brought that up. How are you guys planning to approach that? And the fact that you also are trying to keep that membership very local. A lot of times we see startups serving communities. Sometimes there are a lot of people from urban communities or even other states, that end up joining, end up padding kind of that membership, but they aren't in the community. So that was really exciting to me when you brought that up. And I wondered if you could just speak to it a little more.
Yes. And we're kind of in the beginning phases of the recruitment. We actually started recruiting aggressively maybe at the end of last year, November. And so we're doing a combination of using social media, using a little bit of local media. We're doing an aggressive MailChimp campaign, and then we're doing some door-to-door. This morning we were out passing out flyers for to the people that live right there in the neighborhood where the store is going to be built, because right now there's no indication that anything is going to be built. It's just word of mouth, because it's still, the property still looks like actually looks like this for the most part. But once they start seeing clearing and grading, because there's a couple of things going on. The state is actually doing some clearing and grading because they've taken a piece of the right of way because they're building the highway. They're widening the highway. But we're doing a mix of door-to-door, word of mouth, social media, live recruitment of as far as at local events. This particular Juneteenth, we did a recruitment, and we understand that as it gets closer and people can visually see it, that the recruitment will accelerate, because when people see things tangible, they tend to come in larger droves. And so yes, and we use the number 3,000 because we hope that we can convert because we have a unique process by how we onboard members and owners. People join our co-op initially as members, just as an annual subscriber. It's very affordable, like $20 a year. And what we do during that first year is educate people on the cooperative model. People like Reginald, who thought that it was about Kroger's and things of that nature. We educate them on the cooperative model, but more specifically, we educate them on the West Georgia Farmers Cooperative model. And so when they actually make that real investment and become and purchase a share and become an owner, because our share is a little bit more expensive than probably some of these other food co-op shares, but you're not just owning a store, you're owning a whole food system. And so that's what they're buying into. So by the time they make that real investment, they'll know exactly what they're buying into. And then everybody's is on the same wavelength as far as our values and adhering to the cooperative principles.
Wonderful. And can I ask, are you comfortable sharing what is the share price?
It's four figures. I'll say that it's four figures.
Okay. Oh. All right, fair enough.
Yes, ma'am.
And that makes a lot of sense because if it's larger. Other people with questions, comments? I don't want to dominate here.
Now that we know that the owner share is 4 figures, and looking at your demographics, thanks for sharing that.
Yes, ma'am.
How successful do you think that will be? And will it be a family ownership? Say, for instance, a family, would the share owners have to live in the same household is the question. Along with how, yeah, go right ahead.
Yes, our shares are pretty simple. We're only doing common stock. We're not doing any preferred. And of course, we're looking into making it family versus individual, but right now it's just individual. And of course, your shares can be purchased during your time of membership. So it's not a one-time deal. You can actually lay away your share. You can pay in installments. And it's barely 4 figures. Yeah, it's barely 4 figures. It's not like way up into 4 figures. It's barely 4 figures. And so you can pay in installments. We've got a lot of different type of payment plans where you can accomplish your share within a reasonable amount of time. And so that's how we make it. That's how we accommodate, working class salaries.
Thank you.
All right.
Others?
So you do have a template. You have something that you can share that I can look at, that you can send to me and study.
As it pertains to what specifically?
Well, it seems like there's a misunderstanding. I do want a Kroger's. I do, and I want it to be owned by the community.
Yeah. Well, there's Kroger's is a company, and of course, they don't even do franchises.
No.
So yeah, you wouldn't be able to own a Kroger like you would a McDonald's. So, but I'm glad that you mentioned, because I had a slide. There's a slide that I show when I do my community presentations, because like I said, once a month, every Thursday, we get together with the community and share this presentation. But I've got it customized for the community. And one particular slide that I show is, of course, a lot of brands out here in the cooperative space that a lot of people don't know are co-ops. Ocean Spray,
Mhm.
Land O'Lakes, Farm Bureau, Nationwide, Ace Hardware. And I show that so when people mention a brand, just like you're mentioning Kroger, that is a company that's been around, I believe, maybe not quite 100 years, but they've been around a long time. And it takes a lot of time. It took them a lot of time to build up that brand. And so what we're trying to build with our store is eventually, maybe even after we're gone, we've got a product that's branded. Our co-op is just over the 50 years. It's kind of earned some brand recognition within local food circles. And so once we name our grocery store and we start marketing it, 50 so years or so, it may become a brand like in Aldi or whatever the case may be. We're trying to deliberately create a home because those stores that you mentioned, Kroger, Publix, just being, as the young people say, just keeping it a buck, just being 100% keeping it real. Those stores are not places that many of our products are going to find a home at. And we're reading Grocery Story. Grocery Story is a book that we're reading in our book club, and it tells you a lot about the grocery industry. And the grocery industry is pretty cutthroat, it's prohibitive. There's real estate space in the grocery store, just like it's real estate space out here in real life in places like Coca-Cola, Frito-Lay. They dominate that shelf space, and small people like us will almost never get in there because it's so prohibitive. We can't afford to get in there. And of course, and if we do afford to get in there, we're just basically paying marketing costs. We're really not making any money being in there. But these stores, like they're building in North Carolina, like they're building in East Point, like we're building here, we can brand these stores. And of course, and people that are looking for these types of products, they can get this food. Of course, brands have a seductive value. Brands create loyalty over years due to a lot of psychometrics and a lot of expensive and slick advertising. And of course, you will be able to get the same, if not better quality of food here that you would get at a Kroger, because people that know food co-ops and their history and what they've contributed to this country's food space, a lot of the concepts, organic food, all of those things, co-ops were the forerunners of that. You couldn't go to a Kroger and a Publix and get organic food 40 years ago, but you could go to a 7 Under or some of these other co-ops and get that food, because these grocery stores these food co-ops have been trendsetters, connecting the farmer with the food. That's something that come out of local food spaces, and these other big giants, they copy it, and because they've got, of course, larger market share and they've got more money because they're corporate. But you can accomplish, if you do it right, just as much as far as local value and a quality product. You can accomplish just as much with delivering quality. You may not be able to compete with Kroger and some of those giants as far as quantity and price, but you can definitely deliver quality to your community with these food co-ops as you could with a Kroger. So just keep that, because as you heard the gentle lady mention earlier, Kroger's, these places, they're not really pining to come to our communities because the market doesn't support their growth goals. They're going to upscale communities. Even Walmart is starting to leave some of our communities, and you know that you're struggling when Piggly Wiggly and Dollar General starts to leave communities. So that leaves a space. You still have customers there to have a need, and co-ops are designed to meet that community need while making a profit at the same time, be it small or large. So those are just some of the values and principles behind co-ops that are not really in corporate stores. So the brand, of course, Kroger is, of course, it's great to own something like that, but within a reasonable amount of time, you can build your own brand, just like we attempt to build with our project.
Thank you for that. But yeah, I'm just using it as an example, not necessarily the name Kroger's, but I want that sort of service. You know, I want to have those kind of products. I want to be able to walk into, even though it's owned by the community, I want it to be professionally created, you know, set up. I don't want this little mom and pop mentality or the corner store. You know, I want it to be a grocery store, a legitimate,
Absolutely.
you know, that's what I'm saying. And not necessarily Kroger.
I got you.
But,
and, right. And these in this store now, our store is going to be a full service grocery store. It has all of the departments that you would find in a regular grocery store, you know, meat and seafood, frozen, dairy.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking
about. Health and wellness. Yeah, it's not a convenience store or provisions. It's a full service grocery store. And the market study, we employed the market study to help us determine if it was possible. And the market study said, yeah, we can support this location can support a full service grocery store. So that's what we're embarking upon.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So the question again, can I see a template? An idea that you're going to share that information?
A template for the store or for the ownership? Just yes, a template for, because see, here's the thing about a template. Here's the thing about a template. Let me share this with you. Our city, as you saw in the market study, we got a trade area, right? So it's hard now. If your city is comparable to my city, this may work for you, right? My trade area is about 80,000 people. Spartanburg, South Carolina is about comparable to the size of LaGrange. And of course, and there's a food hub there called Hub City. If it's still, last I heard they had closed. I think they're reopened. Yeah. So Hub City. And the unique thing about Spartanburg and LaGrange is they have a connection, and that's the Milliken Textile Mills. So they're kind of like a sister city. So when you say a template, just understand that, like, what's your city, Regina? What
Memphis. Memphis. Yeah.
I know some people in Memphis. Absolutely. Your template may be something like seven Under is in Atlanta. Your template may be something like 7 Under, or maybe even Market 166 when they get up and going. I'm in small town America. But of course, if your trade area is similar to mine, absolutely. If your trade, once you get a market study and it shows that you got a trade area of about 80,000 people, this template may work for you. Right. But it may not if your area is about 500,000 people or 300,000 people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And fertile ground, even though we're in North Carolina, Mr. Upshaw, we're happy to have any kind of conversation, your steering committee, your board, along with JQ, and tell you the associations or groups around the country that have helped us tremendously understand, given us templates, given us direction to resources. So call on us anytime if you have questions or if you just want to know how we did it, and we can continue to share a part of the cooperative model and spirit, what we have, what we know. And we have peer calls. They're just wonderful ways that we can help if you want to reach out to us.
Should I leave you my email or a phone number?
You may do. JQ, do you have a list of the participants and those of us who want to have that information shared? Is there a way for you to send it to us, or should I just do it in the chat?
Well, if you all put in the chat, if you say me, or yes, add me or whatever, I can look up all the participants who said they wanted to be included, or so put me on the list. And I can then send you all an email, all your emails to each other, and say you're all the ones who agreed that you wanted to get together and chat. So if you can just put it in the chat, say put me on the list, like Sean just did, then I will gather all your names and emails specifically, send them to each other so you can all talk.
Yeah, and I'll definitely help you with resources that have helped us to determine. Yeah, because we're still building our template, to be quite honest.
Okay.
That's a good point. Yes, we all are probably still building templates.
Thank you. I sent my email.
Yes, sir. All right.
In the chat.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all. I will get that done. Well, what an excellent conversation. I was going to ask you more question, Eric, and I think there probably isn't time, but this is just such a powerful and bold vision, which seems to be historically just part of how your co-op is, very forward thinking. But how did this idea emerge in your group? Is this a recent thought or something that you guys have been building toward for a long time? Or just was curious how such a bold vision came about for your organization?
Yes, ma'am. Around 2015, late 2015, early 2016, we were doing our end of the year strategic plan. And we came up with what we call 2020 vision, our vision for 2020. And so that vision for 2020 included what you see now. We wanted a retail outlet, grocery store. We wanted a credit union. We wanted, other metrics, as far as production goals, things of that nature. And so, but really, we just kind of looked to the past to take us to the future, right? We saw some of the incredible entrepreneurial endeavors that of course, some of our, the group before us had created to serve the community at that time. And many of those needs still remained. And of course, but with a new group of people that are, that have the advantage of modern technology and of course, in sustainable ag and a group that's seeking to empower themselves politically and economically, through food, primarily through the cooperative model. We just decided to strategically use our resources to meet that 2020 vision. And of course, once we got enough reserves, we purchased the property, and then we, of course, educated ourselves by coming to these various conferences, getting in these communities. Because like I said, for years, I've always been in the sustainable ag community, local organic. I've always been in those communities. And of course, in being a social worker and human services worker, I've always known the needs of communities. So, and cooperative economics just married all of that. And then of course, and with some very dependable and reliable partners and co-op owners and members, we decided to go at it full throttle. And of course, we still got a ways to go, but it's a lot of moving pieces, as y'all know, and that are on here doing this work. There's a lot of moving pieces.
It's still really impressive how much you guys have gotten done so fast. Thank you so much for joining us, Eric. This was just wonderful.
Thank you all.
Deeply appreciate it. So I want to just real quickly let you guys know about what's coming up. Now, these are the sessions that are coming up tomorrow. We have 3 of them. But I want to point out, they're not on here, but I want to point out Thursday, if you're looking more at Black cooperative organizations specifically, we've got 2 really good sessions Thursday. So Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have the story of the Rise Cooperative. This is what we call a micro-rural community, Cairo, Illinois, about 2,000 people. And they have built a food co-op very rapidly in this tiny little rural community in a town that is 75% Black, and it is predominantly Black led and owned, this cooperative. They just opened about a week ago, and they have an organized, the board themselves asked if they're organizing, if the person who's helped them organize could come, one of their consultants, rather than them, because they were so busy running the store. But he's going to be there on their behalf, and he's hoping to get one board member to share the story of how they did that, why they did that. It's something really different that we haven't seen happen before. There's just so many great things happening. And then Thursday night, we have Tamaya Yosreal is going to be sharing with us about the history of Black cooperative associations in the United States. Really, as you know, how many of us knew about the Georgia Farmers Cooperative and its amazing history? I know I didn't, and all the things it had done. She has been working to unveil some of that as well, following in the footsteps of Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nebhard, and going to be sharing some of those stories with us Thursday night. So I hope a lot of you who are interested in this work, who are working in, who are, are Black cooperators, these might be really of interest to you, especially on Thursday. Not that the rest of the series won't be, but I hope to see you at some of those. And so these are some of the other things we've got going on tomorrow. That Pro Forma 101 for startups might not sound like the funnest idea of what to do with your evening, but it's going to be really good introductory overview of how to look at that pro forma if you're feeling like, I don't understand the finances of doing this, or I'm really intimidated. So check that out. Once again, just want to real quickly thank our sponsors who have made the summer 2023 series possible for all of us, for us to be here and together.